thank you for coming today. And as you know, this is going to be on YouTube, and you'll be recorded. And Bill Greil is co-host with me, so we will try to control you if you don't control yourselves with meeting and video. Because we see some things we don't usually want to see when people think they're turned off when they're not. I'm going to start with, is Carrie Mitchell here?
I'm not getting the whole screen.
Okay. Okay. So is Carrie Mitchell here? No. Steve Scheiderman, you're here?
Make it in the corner. There's a little box.
There he is. Yeah. Okay. So Steve, let's just start.
Next to it.
Dave, that's another fine.
It is. Okay. Got 22 people here. Steve Scheiderman, could you give us a little update on the hand sanitizer, because I don't see Carrie here yet?
Sure. We expanded our first responder reach through 2 different Rotary assistant governors. Chris Hainsworth took care of our South County responders, Bandon, South and East, I should say. Bandon, Coquille, Myrtle Point, Powers, Bridge, and Dora Sitcom, and then AG
Dave Bassett.
Took care of sending product to Langlois, Port Orford, Gold Beach, Brookings, and Curry County Sheriff's Department. And they were all very grateful. We have now opened product up to our fellow Rotarians. You are welcome to come get 1 gallon from me, courtesy of the club. And then if you want to buy additional gallons, we have it available for you.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, if you have any use for, I have a lot of 16-ounce bottles yet that we have not started filling too, if you want to go into a different size.
Great.
So we've been doing 8, but I think there's probably 1,000 of those 16-ounce bottles here.
Wow, okay.
So the person speaking,
or would that be courtesy or SOAB?
That'd be courtesy. So, we found that the smaller size, a lot of people don't need a gallon necessarily, so it kind of helps spread it out farther if you keep the bottles smaller.
Okay, there's Carrie just joined us. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I was just reporting to everybody where we were with the distribution, and Kyle has offered us some, I assume, empty.
They are empty. Yep, but I have labels for them.
16-ounce bottles that we can transfer product to for our members if they don't want gallons.
Excellent.
okay. So Bill, will you say something about the training assembly?
Be glad to, President Eva. There are only 6 of us so far signed up for the District 5110 Club Training Assembly. And that's going to be a weekend after this coming one, starting with a kickoff on Thursday evening by District Governor-elect Cindy O'Neill, and then individual sessions on Friday and Saturday. Tim Novotny, I think you're on here. Maybe I see you're signed up for the session with the president-elect, so that's really cool. Everybody has gotten at least one notice from the district about how to register for the Club Training Assembly. And if you've lost that or you want another one, just email me and I'll make sure you get it. So it's going to be interesting. A lot of people are working real hard to make this as non-boring as possible with Zoom and GoToWebinar.
So Bill, I signed up. Who else signed up from our club?
Let's see, Tim, I think Ron Stillmaker, Tom Bennett, off the top of my head. I can look.
Okay.
Let me jump in real quick too, past District Governor Bill and President Eva. It's really you're losing no skin in the game. It's a great setup they have. It's done in TED Talk style. They're keeping it real quick and moving and entertaining and informative. And also, if you can't make it, if you sign up for it and you can't make it, they are going to be recording them, so you will get a chance to watch it on playback later. So it's a really a no-lose situation to at least sign up for it.
Yeah, I think especially take in Cindy O'Neill's Thursday night kickoff. She's got a real inspirational message that she just can't wait to share with everybody.
You don't have to be there all the day. You just can choose which ones
No,
you
you
want
could
to go to.
pick which session, and when you sign up through DACDB, the District and Club database, you select which sessions you want to attend.
Okay, I have one more announcement, and that's the board meeting is Thursday at noon. And if anybody wants to join that board meeting, it's open to everybody, just email me and I'll send you the connection on Zoom. And with that,
President Eva, I want to apologize. I need to cut out of this meeting and get to a downtown association meeting where we're discussing Fun Festival and other festivals. So please,
okay.
I will depart.
Thank you, Steve. Okay. So Joe Benetti, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce Kyle Stevens.
Okay, President Eva and fellow Rotarians, I'm going to introduce our guest today is Kyle Stevens. He's the Executive Director of Southwestern Oregon Workforce Investment Board, known as SOWEB, which is a 501c3 organization. It serves Coos, Curry, and Douglas counties. It's a governing board that is appointed by the commissioners from each of the counties, the 3 different counties, and works to maximize coordinated investment funds so that our local workforce, including especially the rising generation, has the skills they need to go into the workforce. SOWEB is helping our area capitalize on new opportunities to support and attract these kinds of employers that make our community and families flourish. I don't think there's many people that know about SOWEB. When I'm out and about in the community, they say, who, what, and what do they do? And what do they have accomplished? And it's a pretty unique board and operation. And so I'm gonna let Kyle go on and explain that to you. And please feel free to ask any questions as he's making the presentation. Kyle?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about what we do today. So SOWEB has been around, I think we're going on our 5th year now in operation in the area. We serve Coos, Curry, and Douglas counties. There's a workforce board for every county in the US. And so sometimes you might have a single county workforce board. In the case of Eastern Oregon, you might cover 10 or 11 counties with a single board. As Joe mentioned, our board members are appointed. So we have 19 members appointed by county commissioners that represent business. There's community college makeup. There's social service organizations. It's very scripted. So it has to follow that recipe. If we lose somebody, they have to come from whatever that position is that we need to fill again. We're not allowed to do direct service. So we receive state and federal funding to do workforce projects. A good portion of our contract, and I think our budget for next year is north of $3 million. So there is quite a bit of dollars going into the community. A good portion of that funds the work of SCBEC, or South Coast Business Employment Corporation. And so we kind of look at it as there's 2 sides. There's the side that does the SCBEC side, which is your adult, dislocated, and youth job seekers. And we partner as part of the WorkSource effort. So if you see what used to be called the employment departments or the unemployment office, now they're called a WorkSource office. And it's a co-location of services. So inside you'd have the employment department, SCBEC, in this case us, and then DHS and some other partners. And I'll give you just a little bit of this backstory, and then we can talk about probably the more interesting stuff, which is what's going on right now. So on the adult side, if someone's to come in and they said, you know, we're looking for a job, or we lost our job, we could direct them to training. Those dollars can be used to pay for training for a short, like a year or 2 certificate program, or to just get the skills they need. Or a lot of times what we do is we do a wage match, where we would encourage an employer to take a risk on somebody who maybe wasn't from that field, and in return we'd pay 50% of their wages for the first 6 or 7 weeks. To kind of cover the cost of onboarding a new individual. Dislocated worker is kind of the same. You know, we do a little bit of layoff aversion as well. If there's a company that is having a rough patch and it's between laying people off or holding on for another 2 months until, say, sales pick up, we have some creative programs that can work with that. And that, for example, layoff aversion is what we used with Rick Stillwagon to get the sanitizer. On the youth side, it's a little different. We serve 18 to 24-year-old out-of-school youth or 16 to 20 in-school youth. And when we work with out-of-school youth, we usually pay 100% of the work experience. So a lot of our programs are designed to kind of either get people back into the workforce, get people to advance to a living wage career and out of something that maybe isn't working for them. Or as we do now with our in-school project, it's a lot of almost early intervention to promote the idea of work again, get people interested in that first job, get the kids interested in working on the weekends or seeing that there needs to be this, I guess, kind of career progression. So we do a lot of career exploration. We have a youth project called Recruit Hippo this year where we went into all the schools in Coos, Curry, and Douglas with a career advisor. And that person set up credit-based internships. They set up industry tours, just kind of occupational exposure. Some of the stuff that has historically been done with career counselors that wasn't happening in all of the schools anymore just due to budgetary concerns. We have a project right now where we work with DHS Summer Youth. Those youth are people whose parents were on TANF for receiving SNAP, so they're eligible for a separate pot of money. But I mean, the main goal is to get people working, keep them working, and especially get those that maybe haven't, you know, and not to say that I'm not that far out from being one of those youth, but necessarily kids aren't necessarily rushing to get that first job again. It doesn't seem like full-time summer employment is something that everybody's going after. So we try to encourage that. We do a lot of our work in target sectors. So our board identifies industries that we should focus on. And so the target sectors for Coos, Curry, and Douglas are healthcare, transportation, manufacturing, and hospitality and leisure. And we've recently added childcare and construction. So we try to focus a lot of our efforts there. I mean, I was telling Eva before everybody came on, prior to this, our current COVID period, I think, you know, we all thought healthcare was probably the most stable, highest paid thing that you could direct somebody to. And I think it still will be just with our population, but transportation, we always need truck drivers. Manufacturing has always been kind of the backbone of our area. Hospitality and leisure based on the tourism. Childcare, we are always in a childcare shortage here, which I think everybody's probably aware of. And construction has never really rebounded from the recession. You had a few years in there where people didn't go into the construction industry or the trades. And so you're starting to see that now with the retirements of the people that have been doing it. There isn't that next wave that's ready. And then the other portion of what we do is projects that SOIB does directly. So during COVID so far, we've done a lot of work around PPE. We did sanitizer. We've moved maybe 40,000 masks so far with another 120,000 on the way. And I think there's at least 15,000 sitting in the other room right now. And the goal was to get those out in the community, but it was also to get those into the hands of people in the trades or elsewhere that had given their masks up to healthcare, but then were unable to get their supply as well. We had a lot of people in the construction industry that had donated their masks right off the bat, but then were unable to get them for weeks. So we had guys out there mixing concrete with nothing for dust. We worked with SWAC last year on a nursing program expansion. So our goal was to get more nursing students. We've always had a shortage of nurses here. So we brought in the University of Portland to do rotations here with their bachelor students, BSN nursing students. And then we did some targeted investment around increasing the capacity of SWAC's program, and they were actually able to take twice as many students this year as they had the year before. We created a medical assisting apprenticeship to meet the need for certified medical assistants. That one's been pretty popular. We now have the ability, we can operate in almost any county in Oregon. We have about 83 people in that program. And they're actually asking us to cross the border and head into Washington next. So we hope that that'll continue to gain. And it was an example of kind of using apprenticeship, registered apprenticeship as a model in industries that you don't see it in often. We're looking to do it with childcare next. But most of the time when you think apprenticeship, you think an electrician or a plumber, but there's almost any industry could be an apprenticeship. We've done community health worker. The one that was very interesting the last week, we trained contact tracers for the current epidemic. So Coos County, all of the counties needed 15 contact tracers per 100,000 people in population. Curry County had it under control. Douglas County didn't need anything. Coos County needed 7, it turned out. So we identified 7 former healthcare workers that have been laid off during this. And we're able to put together a training using some online materials that the other areas of the state are using. And then we hired Douglas County Public Health to deliver an in-person training that they were able to, in 1 week, I guess, go from being previous medical assistants and other medical occupations to being contact tracers. And they started yesterday working for Coos Health and Wellness. We have a trucking school that we just built south of town at Rocking S Stables. So we'll be training log truck drivers and CDL drivers using Rainier's forest land in a partnership with the local trucking companies. And that actually, the first 2 students started there today. So we're pretty proud of that one. And then we've worked with employers to start looking at different ways to use anything from targeted advertising to trying to recruit for wood products manufacturing jobs on Snapchat and Instagram, anything to kind of make sure that we're connecting people with the workforce that they need. I mean, our first order of business is to serve the employers that are looking for work, and the next would be to take job seekers that aren't able to find work and make sure that they have the skills to kind of do whatever it is that they'd like to do. I did pull some numbers. I figured that would be a good start to a discussion that kind of talk about what it looks like in the area currently. Oh, and I did fail to mention, so on top of that, we have a business service specialist that goes out and meets with businesses to kind of see what their needs are, help us place our participants and anybody we have looking at our program. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with Mo Aker, but Mo Aker is our local business service specialist. If you see her out running around, trying to get some feedback or looking for businesses to place a potential candidate with, feel free if you know somebody that ever needs something or could use an employee, she's the one to reach out to for our area. For the official employment department statistics, so this is the claims data up until May 9th. From March 15th to May 9th, in Coos County alone, we've had 4,234 people file for unemployment. Now, we know that system has been experiencing some call log delay. There's people that aren't able to get through, so I think it's probably pretty safe to add another 10% on there that are pending claims that we haven't seen yet. So I think when we start to think about what that's going to look like for our area coming out of this, if we have potentially 4,700 people looking for jobs, I mean, already that's a pretty good sized task, and that's multiples of what we saw during the recession. If you start to look at that with a lot of the efficiencies gained during this time in business, if we have even 20% of those jobs not returned, we're going to have a lot of people looking for something. And so right now we're exploring as a board, is this going to be an opportunity to send people, direct as many as we can to the community college for a chance to upskill? Are we going to see if we can access out of area programs? There's always been a dream in this area about having kind of a remote workforce, whether that's IT or anything else. And I think it used to be a tougher sell, but when I look around, I see a full screen plus another screen of you guys joining me on Zoom. I think everybody made the leap pretty quick. So I think we could expect to see the same thing. If everybody in the community could learn Zoom in 6 weeks, we can start to train people to work remotely. And at least that gives a chance for people to stay in this area, pay taxes here, shop locally, but work somewhere else and access living wage jobs that may not be available here. So I think that's kind of our focus. We expect a lot of people that are receiving the extra $600 a week or unemployment. Since everybody entered this at the same time, more than likely, everybody's going to fall off the benefits cliff about the same time. So I think you're looking third week of September to early November. We're probably going to see those 4,000 people if they haven't found or returned to work. And we hope as its community opens up again, and if we don't have any false starts or shutdowns, that a lot of these people will return. But I think realistically, we'll probably have, somewhere around 1,000 people that we'll have to start to figure out how we can get them employed or what we can do for training. And to put that in perspective, Curry County has around 1,200 people, which when you only have 2,600 or 26,000 people in the county, and I don't know what the percentage of the population was that was working, that's a huge number for Curry County. And Douglas County is right around 7,000 right now. So in our 3-county area, you have quite a few people, 16,000 people. I'll take that back, 12,000 people that are currently unable to work. Don't know. I think that'd probably be a good time. I don't want to bore you guys, but if you have something in particular, I'm pretty good at answering questions usually. There's something you'd like to learn a little more about?
So
Still doing about 50 gallons a week of sanitizer.
I'm going to unmute everybody and put your hand up if you want to talk. Okay, you're all unmuted. Who's got a question? Questions, anybody? You should be unmuted.
Hey, Tim.
Hi. So what I had a question when you talk about remote hiring. Is that something that you would see being done individually, or is that something you would see some sort of recruitment of a company hiring a group of people in this area to work remotely? Is that something that your group would be take part in, or is that something that you would help facilitate in some way?
That's a great question. So about 6-7 months to a year ago, we got approached by a company called Treehouse. And Treehouse's, their whole thing was they would come into a community like this. And so since we're partway between Silicon Valley and what they consider the digital forest, their goal was to find somewhere in the middle where people could live a little cheaper, that they could train as a cohort remote IT workers to serve for Fortune 500 companies. So they worked with companies, Airbnb, and they had a few others, but their goal was that, you don't always need everybody to have a 4-year computer science degree to do a lot of this work. So they would do cohorts for that specific company. So we pursued that project for a while. It was in partnership with John Bacon's group, the Business Development Center, and the South Coast Development Center. And we were looking at hosting at the Newmark Center. And about the time we all got really interested into it, and the project dried up. So I think we'd like to look at something similar. Apple Computers was nice enough to fly. There's 9 workforce boards that cover the state of Oregon. They brought all the directors down to that new building they built in Cupertino. And they pitched an idea to us in December. They have a program called Trailheads. And it has to do with it's a business-to-business software. Salesforce is the platform. Salesforce has a huge, prior to COVID, it was estimated they'd need 4.3 million people at an average wage of $70,000 by 2024. I think that number's been reduced now into the 2 millions, but there's still this great demand. So what we'd like to do is figure out a cost-effective cohort training to where we could kind of partner with our community college, provide support, because it's not a structured class that has a nice defined start and stop date and terms. But it is something that I don't think we want to have people out there just trying to wing it. We'd like to build in as much support as we could and some resources they could turn to, an expert that they could ask questions to, but kind of guide them through that process. And then what we like about this Trailheads and Salesforce combination is it has a lot of different points of exit as you go through the program. So it's not one defined career. There's 20 or 30 different occupations within their ecosystem that are, essentially something for everyone. But I think for us, it'd be a good cost-effective start, because I think there's always these conversations about how to get an IT company to relocate here or how to get someone else to come into the area. But until you start to have a base of people with those skills, it's hard to attract anybody. So if we started it as, we start with 50 in Coos and 50 in Douglas and 20 in Curry and have them work together as a cohort, and then keep doing this until we start to build this IT base, then I think you might be able to start to attract people that are looking to hire IT workers. But so far, that seems like the best idea we have, and we are always open to anything new. If anyone has a suggestion.
I have a follow-up.
Sure.
I'm going to flip it. I'm going to flip it somewhat. In the Dungeness crab industry and the seafood industry, we're also facing a constant problem in bringing in new workers in entry level and others along the processing lines, along the early dock workers and boat crew. And we get hits or misses periodically. Someone will contact the Crab Commission. We're not really part of that, but someone will contact us and say, how do we get into this? And we've gone out and we've done the job fair route, which isn't really the kind of, not necessarily the great connections for this kind of work. They're, the people that go to the job fairs aren't necessarily looking for processor work. Is there something that SOWEB could do in terms of hooking up some sort of a web-based call out for workers, where someone from, say, Hallmark could come in and talk about all the different opportunities that exist for employment and shoot it out across the country looking for workers to come in?
Sure. So we don't have a huge reach outside of our 3-county area. I mean, we've done something similar when we were approached by wood products manufacturing in Douglas. We did something called Made in Douglas, where we worked with 3 or 4 of the wood products manufacturers, put it together. And the point of the campaign was to see if we could, take away kind of that stigma of what it was to work in a mill, or at least if people didn't realize how computerized it was, we wanted to get away from an image of, open flames and saws. And then we did a targeted campaign that focused on Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram. It had ads. It linked them back to the site. It was more of kind of a promotion of like the whole career in general, or the occupational field, and then try to draw people in. I mean, I could see a push for something like that, especially some of the more entry-level processing gigs, because I think if this follows kind of what you saw in the recession, you're going to have more of the entry-level jobs that were normally taken by youth kind of be taken by adults as they scramble to find positions. So that maybe that's where it'll open up. But it's definitely something we can help you promote. Our work in the schools, we kind of promote anything and everything, because we've been approached by logging is having a hard time finding people again. And the wages have increased in the last few years, but it's still, when everybody's looking for employees, it's hard to find someone that wants to ride for 2 hours to a job site in the rain. Generally that becomes the hardest to fill. But it is kind of, I mean, we hate to use the analogy of like shape sorting or something, but we know what we have in the area, and we know we have, roughly 800 students graduating. And so it's kind of, how do you take, I think we have 1,900 seniors between all 3 counties combined. And if you start to peel that off and think of the percentage that go to school and that fall into these other buckets, you have a very limited number of people without having an influx of population or people relocating here. And so we try to kind of take the data and look at what that does look like, especially if you're going to have an occupation or an industry that also takes off and needs 200 people. They have to come from somewhere.
More questions? Unmute yourself. Oh, you're unmuted. Okay, go, Joe.
So Kyle, it's a little bit more than just getting data and putting some numbers together and trying to train employees. You have to get pretty creative, or at least Kyle has, on some of these jobs and trying to train people. So, we had a problem with nursing, as you mentioned, and it made it sound easy. We doubled the amount of nurses, but there's a little bit more to it than that. Can you explain why we had some problems, Kyle, up there, and how we averted those issues?
Yeah, so nursing was a weird one for us, because we have a ton of people that want to become nurses. So we had 5 to 1 getting turned, or I guess 1 out of every 5 made it through into the nursing program, and the other 4 got turned away. But yet we have these available jobs. You have local kids that are graduating high school. They want to be a nurse. You got a job that's in the pays $70,000 to $80,000 a year. And our choke point on nursing was capacity at the community college. And what that ended up, actually, the reason behind that when we started to dig into it was that the wage of nursing faculty is locked in step with everything else at the community college, and you couldn't pay market. So for someone to want to teach nursing, they'd have to take a $30,000 to $40,000 a year pay cut and get a master's degree. And it wasn't, if your heart wasn't in it, it wasn't a real popular route. So we came in and did a wage supplement. We tried to even the playing field on the wages. We did the same thing. We worked with people that were doing the clinical instructors in the hospital sites. We increased the wage that they received through a supplemental pay from a grant from OHA. And so we kind of leveled it out to where now you didn't have to necessarily lose $20 an hour if you wanted to give back to your community. And what we saw was within 6 months, we had enough instructors to run that program wide open. And now this year, the numbers are even higher.
And also, you should explain the Sauce Brothers program we put together. They came to us and asked for some information or asked for some help, and Kyle came up with a plan and program that assisted them.
Sure. Yep. So Sauce Brothers had approached us for a few different things. They were looking for welders, welders out at Somar, and we were able to work with the high schools and kind of match it up. So Sauce offered to pay for. They paid the tuition for those students for welding, and we helped identify them. And then the one that we've been working on that has been kind of the most interesting was tugboat cooks. So we have an excellent culinary program. We have a company that hires 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cooks a year, and they need those people. They prefer them to have culinary skills. And so we just kind of matched up a couple of local companies. If you said, okay, so let's take kids that are going through the culinary program, and when it comes time for their externship, let's let them do a ride along with Sauce Brothers and see if cooking on a tugboat is something they'd be interested in doing. And so compared to the kind of the average salary for a culinary graduate, the Sauce Brothers position was, close to $75,000 a year with 150 days off. So it was appealing, but it wasn't for everybody. So what we did was we built in these tours. So you got to go on a 3-day trip up to Columbia, see if you could take it. If you could handle that, you went out for 2 weeks. If you could handle that, when you applied, you knew or didn't know whether you could be on a tugboat. And in the meantime, we'd also gone through with a 360-degree camera and shot that entire tugboat so that you weren't just telling them what a boat was like or what it was like to live on a boat. You had the ability to go through like one of those realty tours and click around and see this thing. Spend some time thinking about whether you could be on that or not, or what it would be like to be essentially trapped on there for 20 days. We've put that 360-degree camera to use a lot. It's something, if anybody ever needs, holler. We've used it to do healthcare tours. A lot of our work in healthcare, provider recruitment's expensive. And if people are spending that much to necessarily, like say you're spending $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 to recruit a provider to our area, that's generally money that you're not spending on training that support staff underneath that provider. And so our goal would be to invest more of that money locally into training the levels underneath the provider. Hey, Jay.
Well, Kyle, can I ask a question? This is Bill Greil.
Sure.
How many of those cooks do you need? And I'm not thinking about me or my wife, Linda, but I might have somebody in mind. I'm not talking about you either, Joe.
Sure.
But how many of those cooks do you need, and are there openings right away?
There's usually openings right away. So it seems odd that they go through so many, but they usually start there and then they'll go to a different tour. So there's 2 or 3 tugboat companies, and there's only one culinary institute that's training cooks for the sea, and it's in Alabama called Son of a Cook. So we've been trying to bring that to the West Coast. So when you're figuring like capacity on a tugboat, you can't necessarily have a cook that's just a cook. So in the head count of things, you want a fully trained member that's AB licensed that can also cook. But I think, it's enough to where once we get this ironed out, so SWAC is adding Columbia Pacific Maritime School is relocating to Coos Bay. So you're going to start to see more maritime training happening in the area. But it's one of those that it might be something that we used to put out a lot of different culinary people, but now we might be putting out maritime culinary as a focus.
Great, thank you.
Jay wants a question, but he's muted.
Sure.
Let's see.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Now I think I'm coming through. Kyle, I'm aware that SWAC has a virtual welding shop in a trailer.
Sure.
And I'm wondering whether that's being used with your welding employment efforts.
Sure. No, unfortunately, that trailer has not been used a lot in recent years. And that's something I think that they're planning on repurposing it from what we've heard. It was something that we wanted to get into. So we see the value in those trailers, especially, everybody's kind of familiar with Measure 98 and the CTE training. So we spent a lot of time this year working kind of with the ESDs and watching where this 98 money was going and what we were going to focus on for CTE training. We would love to see more mobile training options. So a school like Powers could call that trailer down and offer it in the spring, but then it could be located in another school in the fall. and you don't have to have this substantial investment into individual CTE programs at each school. Winter Lakes down there in Coquille, they bought heavy equipment simulators, and if you ever get a chance to see them, it's actually cool. I could see why the kids would be into it. I mean, it's on an articulating platform, and it has the full CAT controls. And so they have excavator and I think front end loader. But like the goal for us would be if you had a trailer that had, say, a CNA classroom, and you had another trailer that had that welding simulator, and you had another trailer that had heavy equipment simulators, or a faller buncher for logging, and you could move those between the areas. Then you get away from this heavy investment into kind of dated tech, or having each school think that they need to have their own very expensive program, and you have something that's a little more flexible. But no, I think that trailer's been unused by SWAC for 3 years now.
Yeah, it's really too bad. The investment and the potential uptick for employment opportunities. Welders are highly needed.
They are. That's one of the few programs that was allowed to continue face-to-face, even during the COVID, because of the fact it was in demand. Construction wasn't shut down. So we've been writing support letters for UCC down in Roseburg to continue face-to-face operations over the summer for those programs.
Other questions? Just raise your hand and unmute yourself.
So Kyle, it's Joe again. So can you explain some other programs like for the youth? Didn't we help with the mountain bike trails that we have here for tourism?
So for 2 years, we contributed to a work crew of youth, and that was part of that WEX. It's kind of like your first job. So if you got kids that are just not necessarily interested, so we do kind of youth cohorts. Oh, there's a good one actually in our parking lot right now. We're running, if anybody drives by the work source on South 2nd, we've been running a construction training program. So the same thing, it's youth we call them out of school youth. So that it's a federal definition. It means 18 to 24 not engaged in college or high school. And they were learning to build. We really wanted to train people on construction, and we figured, okay, if we do a shed start to finish, you get to see a little bit of everything. You do the floor, you do the walls, you frame, you hang a window, you hang a door, you do some roofing. So we were on our second shed when we had to shut it down for social distancing. And unfortunately, we had a little arson here Saturday night. They burned one of them to the ground. So if you drive by, you'll see a burned out shed. But we are firing that project up again on Tuesday. So we're always looking for kind of these either cohort programs for youth or places that we can take a crew of youth where they can work. Sorry, it's lunch break outside my window, so it's a little loud. I apologize.
That is you. I was wondering if that was coming from you because everybody else is muted.
Yeah, no, it's me.
Okay. Any other questions for?
Locked in here together for a few weeks, so it's.
Kyle, anybody else got a question? In that case, thank you very much, Kyle. It was very informative. We've learned a lot about what's happening. Yeah, right.
Anybody ever has questions or anything else, please feel free to reach out.
Okay,
Yeah,
I see.
an employer, they're available, and I think people need to reach out to them more. They can really be helpful in a lot of ways. So if you got questions or need some help, just reach out to Kyle. I'm sure he can assist you.
Yeah, I have a really great team that loves to be challenged. I mean, I've never heard them say no to anything. So please, if you ever have something, let us know.
And where again are you, Kyle? You're on 2nd Street?
I'm actually we're co-located in the WorkSource office. We are the only board that is located in a WorkSource office, and we've just never got a different office space. So we share space with these guys. And then we have a program manager based in Roseburg. And currently, for the last 6 weeks, it's myself here in the WorkSource office, and everybody else is spread out from home. So we have a lot of calls that look like this one right now.
Thank you for all the work you do.
Yeah.
Really amazing. And all the 3 counties. Now I see Brad Bixler here. Brad, do you want to talk a little bit about Shelter Box?
I think I'm unmuted.
No, you're there. You're there.
So yeah, Eva sent out the newsletter just recently about Shelter Box, and just wanted to make sure the club understood it was still very active and still seeking support, financial support from members as they're dealing with a number of crises internationally. So if you have a few minutes, just if you would just take a quick look at the newsletter and just keep Shelter Box in front and foremost in terms of your international efforts to support Rotary. So thank you, Eva.
Thank you. Hey, Bill, you got anything there?
Well, yeah, you know, a couple of our clubs in the district are really stepping up to try to help local businesses through this incredible challenging time. A couple ideas I would invite the board to consider. One is that the Greater Corvallis Club is listing like 3 or 4 restaurants every week and encouraging their members to do takeout or otherwise support them on Friday of each week. I mean, that's one thing that our club could do. Another is the Big Eugene Club is having a raffle at every one of their meetings, and they're meeting on Zoom right this very minute, noon on Tuesday. And what they do is they have a list of the members in the club, and then they have an online thing where it's like you push a button, it spins a wheel, and a winner's name comes up. And then the prize is that they're giving a gift certificate to that local business as a way to support it. I'm not sure how they're collecting dollars, or even if they are, but it would be something our club could do with its, oh my gosh, Eva, that's a heck of a back screen you got there.
That's me.
But that's something our club could do to support local businesses, because there's some of us that, other than the stock market, you know, have weathered this thing okay. But then there's others that are really hurting, and I just have a lot of empathy for these businesses that are struggling. I heard this morning that one business that's been in the community for decades is going to be closing, and that just, it breaks my heart.
So we'll discuss that at the board then.
Just
Probably.
ideas.
Yeah. The reason I keep moving out of the screen is not to show me behind. It's because I have a runny nose and I have these tissues, and I don't want to do this, you know, in front of everybody. So it's not to show that.
I don't have my mask near me.
It's a fat tire bike. So anybody else have anything to talk about or say? Anybody?
Just a reminder, you sent out the email. People, check your email boxes. We have a couple of weeks left to get your dues in, where you get a deal on $20 off. So take advantage of that and spread the word if you know somebody who wasn't on today's meeting to get the dues in early.
And Steve Scheiderman just joined us again, and he wants to speak, I believe. Steve, are you there?
Back, but doesn't want to speak.
Okay, I see Deanne does. Deanne, unmute yourself. Deanne, unmute. I'm trying, there you go. Okay.
Okay, there I am. Our local food banks also, if anybody wants to do donations, I know they're still in need.
Even somebody identified as iPhone without a camera on has also got their hand raised.
Let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay.
That's me, Alicia.
Okay, Alicia, go ahead.
Okay, I have a couple questions. First, the thing that was just suggested about going out to eat locally to support the restaurants, the community I was in before raised a great deal of money by having a theme on every Thursday or every Friday, and the theme just got people out to go to restaurants that were either the theme had to do with what they were supporting, or the theme had to do with the type of food you were eating. And people went out that never normally would go out just to support that, because they knew it was a fundraising event. Or, well, actually, this one would be just a celebration of the restaurant concept, going and getting food from a restaurant. But I like that idea, and if we advertise it, I think that would be much more participation. Secondly, to Kyle, I was wondering if this training that occurs at the WorkSource parking lot that has to do with the construction skill set for the 18 to 24-year-olds, is that a credentialed training? And so when the participants finish, do they have a credential in their hand of some sort? Because I know that would be very attractive to plenty of contractors. Thirdly, I wanted to know if the, where's my list here? Oh, my other question. Oh, donating to Shelterbox. Is that something that when I write my check for the dues, do I put an earmark on there that said send $20 to Shelterbox from my dues? Or is that donation completely separate and I send it to a different address that's to the link provided in your newsletter that for Shelterbox specifically, and just say that's an individual donating to Shelterbox? Is that how you support them?
So Brad, can
Right.
you answer that?
Yes, it's best to do it through their link. Yeah, and the reason is if it just, then it doesn't require the club to do a transfer. The club would have to do the transfer, I would do the transfer.
Okay.
Handle it internally, but if you don't mind doing it directly to their link, that way they get it directly from you, because it's not a it's sponsored. Rotary is a sponsor, but their monies are not commingled, and they're not within the structure of the foundation because it's not renewable.
Okay.
So for your
Thank
other
you.
questions, Leisha, I believe Kyle has left us, so we'll contact him directly probably, and I can send you his information if you want.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Put up your hands. I see Stephanie Kilmer, you've joined us. See here.
Yeah, sorry, I was in another meeting.
Have you got any questions? Anything to comment on? Anything to talk about? Oh,
Nothing.
nothing. Oh boy, that's
Except,
unusual.
I like you as a blonde.
Oh, yes. Next week I'll be a redhead. How's that? Okay, Deanne. Here, I'm unmuting you. Takes a while. There it goes.
I think that idea about a weekly theme, maybe we could do that and pick, a Mexican, Chinese, Oriental, American, or whatever, and everybody would do it that week, and then the next week we could pick a different theme, and then we could.
Sounds good.
I'm up for that.
Okay. Everybody else up for that? We can send out information on that.
Can I say something in
Al
reference to that?
Solomon has his hand raised too when you get to it, Eva.
Alicia's going to go first. Okay, Alicia.
Okay. I just wanted to let you know this thing was extremely successful in that community for probably the last 22 years. And what it ended up having is the businesses would put a huge amount of staff on that night, even staff that no longer work there, just to come help produce the volume of material, food that they would need. And because ours is remote, it might be pretty unique. They'd have to deliver. I don't know. I just think it would be good to publish. Have it be published, and then the restaurants wouldn't be surprised. And anyway, that's what I was thinking.
Sounds like you could work on that with Deanne.
Sure.
It does. Okay, Al Solomon, you've got something?
Yeah, excuse me. I'm on the budget committee for the Charleston Fire Department, and we had our budget meeting last night, and they handed out these Charleston Fire Department masks, right? Like this. And it looked suspiciously like the masks that you're waiting 4 to 6 weeks to show up. And I tried this thing, and it's inside is like foam. So what happens is you can't breathe through it. When you breathe, it goes out and in over the perimeter of the thing. And the whole idea is to filter your germs instead of sending them up and out. And so I'm wondering if you could maybe take a look or check with those people and find out what the construction is before you're committed to 300 masks or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't actually order them because they were changing the format. So I have to wait and see what they're changing to. They had a design problem, maybe like what you're talking about there. So they're not ordered.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you might want to stop by the fire station, and they're like,
Right.
say he ordered 200 of them. That was minimum, and he's got these masks to give away. So you
Now,
might wanna
foam is
check
kind of
it
hard
out.
to breathe through. It's true.
Pardon?
Foam is hard to breathe through.
Good
Yeah.
point.
Yes. Anybody else?
Hey, Eva, I want to give a shout out to Steve Schneiderman. He did 2 upgrades to our district business listing last week. So here, Steve.
Hey, Steve. Steve?
Yes.
He,
Thank
he
you.
wants to.
I just spent money. That's all I did. Spend money.
I like your facial fur.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything to talk about? Next week, we're going to have the Operation Rebuild Hope, correct, Deanne? Where are you, Deanne? Yeah, there. Okay. Yeah. Her name is Angie. Oh, unmute. Takes a while to unmute. There you go.
I'm learning sign language, and so this is yes.
Okay. Okay. I guess
You know,
we're
when
done.
folks are muted, all you got to do is hold down your space bar while you're talking, and it automatically unmutes you. Quick and easy.
It takes a longer time for me to unmute you. It takes a few seconds when I push on it. You have to wait. So
How many of you just tried that? Thanks for the tip. That is awesome, Bill. I wish I would have known that sooner. See, you learn something new every day.
Well, nobody's asleep in this meeting. Okay, it's fun. Thank you all for coming. And whoever wants to go to the board meeting, let me know, which is Thursday. Okay, we will end this. Thank you again. And you can watch it on YouTube.